All right, so in our very first story, and news coming to us in the last couple of hours, Martin Amidu, the special prosecutor, has resigned his office, and it's just breaking news in the last couple of hours. I have Kojo Yangsing. He's a host of the Super Morning Show. He's joining us, and he has details first of the letter of the press release that was put out by Martin Amidu, and the letter that he sent to the president indicating his resignation. Thank you very much, Kojo. So I want us to go, first of all, let's go through the letter, the press release that was put out by Martin Amidu.
Both documents have lots of information, starting with the press release, which had the heading Resignation of Appointment as Special Prosecutor with Immediate Effect, Martin A.B.K. Amidu Esquire. It says, this is to inform the public that I resigned from my position as the Special Prosecutor of the Office of the Special Prosecutor with immediate effect upon the submission of my letter of resignation with reference number and so forth, dated the 16th of November 2020, which was received at the Office of the President at 15:15 hours this afternoon. I should not ordinarily be announcing my resignation to the public myself, but the traumatic experience I went through from the 20th of October until the 2nd of November 2020, when I conveyed in a 13-page letter to the conclusions and observations on the analysis of the risk of corruption and anti-corruption assessment on the report on Ejapa Royalties Limited, transactions and other matters related thereto, to the President as Chairman of the National Security Council, cautions against not bringing my resignation as the Special Prosecutor with immediate effect to the notice of the Ghanaian public and the world. In undertaking the analysis of the risk of prevention of corruption and anti-corruption assessment, I sincerely believed that I was executing an independent mandate under the Office of the Special Prosecutor Act 2017 and the Office of the Special Prosecutor Operations Regulation 2018, LI 2374. The reaction I have received from daring to produce the Ejapa Royalties Limited transactions anti-corruption report convinces me beyond any reasonable doubt that I was not intended to exercise any independence as the Special Prosecutor in the prevention, investigation, prosecution, and recovery of assets of corruption. My position as a Special Prosecutor has consequently become clearly untenable. It is essential for me to state, for the purpose of the records and contrary to public perceptions, that my appointment letter was received on 5th February 2020, almost 2 years after my appointment. The copy addressees made no efforts to honor any of the conditions of appointment in terms of emoluments and benefits of the appointment ever since my warrant of appointment was issued on 23rd of February 2018 to the date of my letter of resignation. I accepted the offer on 10th of January 2018 to be nominated to be Special Prosecutor because Mr. President and Ghanaians knew I have been an anti-corruption crusader all my life and not an anti-corruption entrepreneur. This explains why I have never put the emoluments and benefits of the office as central to my commitment and my passion for the establishment of an independent, effective, efficient, and impartial anti-corruption office of the Special Prosecutor before the end of the first term of Mr. President. This has not been possible for several reasons. 2 more paragraphs, easy. The Deputy Special Prosecutor has also not been paid any emoluments since her appointment, and there is the need to redress that situation for her now that I am out of the way. The events of 12th November 2020 removed the only protection I had from the threats and plans directed at me for undertaking the Ejapa Royalties Limited Transactions Anti-Corruption Assessment Report and dictates that I resign as the Special Prosecutor immediately. Fear is the enemy of change, and I am prepared from the vacuum created on the 12th of November 2020 to meet the threats of my demise as the price to pay for serving my country without fear or favor, affection or ill will. I acted professionally throughout in the discharge of my duties, and my conscience is the anchor of my strength to face any consequences. I am grateful to every Ghanaian for both the support and criticism during my tenure. When the real facts of my tenure become well known to the public in the future, history may judge me kindly. Ghana first. Israel.
All right, so that's the press statement that was put out by the prosecutor, the special prosecutor, Martin Amidu. And he indicated in the very last paragraph that when the real reasons or the real facts of his resignation come to bear, or when the real facts of my tenure become well known to the public in the future, history may judge me kindly. And interestingly, we have a letter that he's written to the president. And so we'll be sharing that with you, and hopefully that may bring to bear some of the things he sought to put out, which were not contained in the press release. We'll share that with you. But right now we're going to Jubilee House, where we have Elting Brobe, the presidential correspondent. Elting, now I spoke with you about an hour ago, and I was trying to find out if we have any reaction from the presidency. Do we have any reaction now?
We still don't have any reaction from the presidency, but what I can tell you first up is that a reaction may be coming very soon. That is the information I've picked from the corridors of power. That a statement is being worked on, and we're likely to have a reaction from the president very soon. And the reaction may talk about acceptance of the resignation, and then the way forward. It is unclear whether the statement will respond directly to all the issues raised in the the former, if I should put it that way. Martin Amidu's letter announcing his resignation, whether the statement for the president will react to all the issues that are concerned. There's one school of thought that is telling me that the government may take opportunity of this resignation letter that has come from the special prosecutor and to tell Ghanaians what government has done from the day of inception, the establishment of the office up to now, government allocation in terms of resourcing the office, budgetary allocation, and everything that government has done to make life comfortable and make work easy for the special prosecutor. And another school of thought is telling me that the letter may simply acknowledge receipt of the letter and then express regrets at the decision taken by the special prosecutor. It may wish him well. It's unclear which one of these will come out eventually. But what I'm picking up is that government in the coming hours or tomorrow will respond directly, one by one, what is done so far since the establishment of the special prosecutor, what they've done for the special prosecutor, the challenges and the frustration they encountered in making sure that the office is up and running effectively. And this particular statement may also respond to the recruitment of personnel to the office of the special prosecutor and the fact that government had no role, and that the appointment or secondment of people as investigators to the office of the special prosecutor was at the behest of the special prosecutor, and that government cannot be blamed for the fact that some of the investigators may have compromised themselves during their duty. So this is what I'm taking from the corridors of power, and now we are waiting to see the mode and shape in which this statement will come from the presidency issue.
All right, thank you very much, Elting Brobe. He's our presidential correspondent. So I indicated to you that there's also a letter that Mr. Martin Amidu wrote to the president announcing his resignation. Kojo Yangsing is still here with me, and he has that letter as well. So Kojo, you take us through this other letter.
Israel, this is a 3-page letter, and it has a lot more detail behind Mr. Amidu's decision, written in what you might think is strong language.
All right.
The heading is Resignation of Appointment as Special Prosecutor, is addressed to the President. Kindly refer, Your Excellency, to your letter with reference number as follows, dated the 30th of January 2020 and hand-delivered to me in person on the 5th of February 2020, formally offering my appointment as the Special Prosecutor. I also refer to my letter dated 17th February 2020, accepting Your Excellency's offer of appointment as the Special Prosecutor, made in your said letter. The purpose of this letter is to convey to Your Excellency, Mr. President of the Republic, that pursuant to Section 13, 8, and 10 of the Office of the Special Prosecutor Act 2017, Act 959, and Article 1453 of the 1992 Constitution, I am resigning my position as the Special Prosecutor with immediate effect to enable Your Excellency to take steps to appoint a replacement to that position as required by law. The one condition upon which I accepted to be nominated as a special prosecutor when you invited me to your office on 10th January 2018 was your firm promise to me that you will respect and ensure same by your government for my independence and freedom of action as the special prosecutor. Several things have happened since then, but your reaction to my letter with reference number OSP as follows, dated 16th October 2020, which was delivered to you on 19th October 2020, conveying to you the conclusions and observations of the analysis of the risks of corruption and anti-corruption assessment of the Ejapa Royalties Limited transactions, convinces me beyond every reasonable doubt that you had labored under the mistaken belief that I could hold the office of the special prosecutor as your poodle. After receiving my letter under reference on 19th October 2020.
All right, Kojo, I wanted you to just quickly backtrack to this particular paragraph because it is quite interesting. So just go over that again, the part about the poodle.
Yes. So he says, several things have happened since then, but your reaction to my letter with reference number as follows, dated 16th October 2020, which was delivered to you on 19th October 2020, conveying to you the conclusions and observations of the analysis of the risk of corruption and anti-corruption assessment of the Ejapa Royalties Limited transactions, convinces me beyond every reasonable doubt that you had labored under the mistaken belief that I could hold the office of the special prosecutor as your poodle.
All right. In other words, he says, I come to the conclusion, or you were of the impression, you, the president, were of the impression that I was going to work as your poodle.
That's it.
All right, let's continue.
After receiving my letter under reference on the 19th of October 2020, you ordered your chief of staff on 20th October 2020 to deliver an urgent message personally to me the same day. When she could not reach me on the telephone, she decided to invite me in writing in her letter with reference number as follows, dated 20th October 2020, stating that, quotation marks, open, I have been directed by His Excellency the President of the Republic to deliver an urgent message personally to you today, 20th October 2020. I am looking forward to seeing you as requested. Quotation ends. I received the Chief of Staff's letter the next morning, 21st October 2020, and reported to her office as requested. The message she delivered to me was that you had instructed that I was not to do anything about my report on the Ejapa Royalties transaction until I had met you on Friday, 23rd October 2020. You were away in the Volta region when I met the Chief of Staff. I met Your Excellency in your office in the afternoon of 23rd October 2020, and I underscored the fact that my letter dated 16th October to you was sent out of the necessary courtesy of prior information to your office as President of the Republic and the Commander-in-Chief responsible for national security. I also underscored the fact that the analysis of the risk of corruption and anti-corruption assessment was conducted professionally. It could not be reviewed by the Minister of Finance or yourself. And my letter was particularly not intended for you to direct me as to how to conduct the duties of my office. Your Excellency insisted that I should withhold any further action on the report for 1 week. I reluctantly agreed to your terms, but gave you notice immediately that I did not intend to continue as the special prosecutor because of your interference in the performance of my functions under the law. It's worth noting, Israel, this all happened on the 23rd of October. He is saying here that he actually informed the president he was going to resign on the 23rd of October. I'll continue.
Please do.
You eventually invited me to your office in the evening of Sunday, 1st November 2020, where I again asserted that I was not going to bargain over the independence of my functions as the special prosecutor. I refused to take the copy of the alleged comments from the Minister of Finance you offered me, as that would have compromised my independence as the special prosecutor. I also refused to shelve my report to enable you handle the matter which explains my press release to the public on the morning of 2nd November 2020 and the follow-up with the distribution of the full 64-page Ejapa Royalties Transactions Anti-Corruption Assessment Report to the public. Unbeknown to you that I had published the full 64-page report to the public, you caused a press statement to be made based on my letter dated 16th October 2020 to you under reference, which sought to politicize and downplay the seriousness of the professional analysis of the risk of corruption and anti-corruption assessment reported by my office. It thus became abundantly clear to me that I cannot continue under your government as the special prosecutor because we disagree on the non-partisan independence of the special prosecutor in the performance of the functions of my office in preventing and fighting corruption and corruption-related offenses. The 64-page analysis of corruption and anti-corruption assessment report discloses several serious corruption and corruption-related offenses in respect of which I intended to open full investigations as the special prosecutor. I cannot do that now after your political interference in the performance of functions of the office for 2 weeks from 20th October 2020 to 1st November 2020, culminating your directives on how the anti-corruption assessment report of the Ejapa Royalties Limited transaction by this office should be handled by the principal suspects disclosed by the anti-corruption assessment report. Again, an important point to note here is that he says the president was asking him to let his report be handled by the suspects that he had identified in the report.
That's unusual.
I'll continue. More importantly, Your Excellency was acting as a judge in your own cause in usurping my functions to take any independent follow-up actions on the anti-corruption assessment report when you knew from my 13-page letter of 16th October 2020 conveying the conclusions and observations of the anti-corruption assessment report to you that negative anti-corruption assessments had been made against the conduct of your office in the procedure adopted in granting the executive approval dated 24th March 2020 and your assent of the Minerals Income Investment Amendment Act 2020, Act 1024, on the 27th of August 2020, intended to retroactively impact the parliamentary approval of the transactions document granted on 14th August 2020, pages 31 to 33 and 52 to 53 of the full 64-page report submitted to you on 2nd November 2020 contained the detailed anti-corruption assessment on these matters. The totality of the foregoing interventions by you in my functions make my position as the special prosecutor untenable. If you don't mind, I'll summarize the rest.
Please summarize.
He goes on to talk about how he has been constrained in terms of resources and that he feels embarrassed. In fact, I want to read that part word for word because he says that the whole proceedings of my vetting for approval for appointment is still available online, and I am most disappointed to listen to it years down the line. He feels disappointed in himself for not being able to fulfill what he promised he would at his vetting. And it ends with this paragraph. I have delayed since 2nd November 2020 in submitting my letter of resignation to Your Excellency to enable me to formally facilitate a smooth transition from my tenure to the Deputy Special Prosecutors, who by law has to act as the Special Prosecutor for the meantime. She has also not been paid any emoluments since her appointment, and you may wish to redress that situation for her now that I am out of the way. Kindly accept, Your Excellency, my assurances of the highest consideration.
All right, thank you very much, Joynews, but I would want you to stay with me because there's a bit more that we would have to analyze. There have been a number of things that happened before we got to this point. It has to do with the report that he put out and some of the reactions that we got from the majority in Parliament as well as the NDC. But right now on the line, I have Bright So, who is with the Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition. Thank you very much for joining us. So you have been fighting corruption for quite a while. I mean, the institution. What do you make of the resignation of the office of the special, or the resignation of the special prosecutor, and what he's had to say?
Good evening to you, Israel. And I know Yankton is on the line as well, so good evening to you and all your viewers and listeners. It's a bit of a mixed feeling for me. I think the challenges of the office, or the challenges are summarized by the now former special prosecutor, Mr. Amidu. He's always been open and he's spoken about them. He's never shied away from talking about the challenges facing him and his office. And so in that sense, I think the resignation does not surprise me so much. But you also have to look at the character of the man in the sense that this is one very determined, persevering sort of person. And if you look at the work he did on the way you make it, it certainly tells you, it brings out that sort of quality for us. So in that sense, that he's essentially quit his post is kind of surprising. But if you look at the issues we could infer from, you just read a portion. I was listening to while you were reading that particular document. I don't know if it was Youngson was reading that particular bit. But it would seem to me, what I'm inferring is that we've heard Mr. Amidu talk several times that, yes, there's been lack of collaboration and support from government in its entirety. But it's always praised the president, for supporting him. And it seems as though that's the one bit that he's always held on to, that he enjoys that support, so he's able to carry on his work. However, a Japan comes in and it seems to be the straw that broke the camel's back, in the sense that wherever the some reprisals are coming from, it seems it's coming from, in a sense, either the highest office itself or it's so near to the highest office that he probably feels does not have the one support, or from the highest places that he once held on to be able to carry out his work. And if you look at the statements coming out and you infer from those statements, that's a bit of what I'm getting from it. That once he felt that support was no longer there, then he felt his position also, or he acted in that capacity also, he could simply not continue his work in that regard.
All right, now, what all this actually means is that, yes, there may be people who are keen on fighting corruption, but corruption is also going to fight back, which is something that has been said always. Now, does it appear that we're ever going to win this fight against corruption?
Of course, if you put the systems in place to be able to do that, you should be able to win the fight against corruption.
But this is a system that was put in place.
Like I think it was Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, former Nigerian minister, who wrote a book that fighting corruption is dangerous. It is dangerous. It always fights back. It always bites back. So it needs certain kind of characters to withstand the threat and all of that comes with being in an arena like that. But again, you're also seeing that it's not just also about the institutions anymore, it's also about the leadership. So, for instance, for this government, in 2016, coming into power, the OSP was painted essentially almost as the panacea for corruption. And that's the institution that they were thinking about bringing in to be sort of a game changer as far as prosecuting and the hard part of corruption was concerned, which was the investigations and prosecution. Then somewhere along the line, it felt as if the office was being held up as though it is independent by itself, and anytime issues of support for the office came, issues of resources from the office came, that independence was put over it there as though this is the refrain, that they are independent, they do what they need to do, or they need what they have to do, sort of scenario. So in a way, the government of distance itself from the office, and therefore distance itself from the failure or success of the office in that sense. And then we've come to the extent where now the cases being picked up seem to be cases that are also at the very heart of government itself. And then we are getting this sort of a reaction. So it makes you really wonder, and you have rightly asked the question, can we ever win the fight? Because the same people who said we're going to fight it, who it appears, from what we are inferring, that have not given the necessary support for the office to go to work.
As far as you're concerned, what's the way forward, or what does it look like going forward?
We will have a new special prosecutor, at some point in time, whether it be end of this year or early next year. But I think if you look at the arena, really, for Mr. Amidu, all the challenges that he's faced, some of them are also in a sense, and I would like to admit it, in a sense also self-reflected. The personality has also been quite an issue. He's not been very good with interpersonal relationships. And you need that in the governance process, even for institutions that are apparently independent institutions. You need that to be able to get the resources you need to go to work. It's not about basically sucking up the people, but it's about once you go to work, you are sending letters asking for resources and for support. Those letters in the source sometimes do not get the work done. You need to be able to call and talk to the people. I don't think he's going to have that personality that allowed him to be able to work across the institutions needed, that's able to produce some result there. So we can hope that whoever the next prosecutor is we can have a bit of not just the competence, but the personality also to be able to undertake work of that nature. But the concerns that he's raised will also be there. And we need to find some sense both to ensure financial independence for the office. Not just in terms of making allocation in the budget that this goes to the office, but when does the money actually go? Who releases the money to that particular office? And again, we're seeing what it seems he's alleging also might be political interference coming in, which was the reason why in producing the act, we put so many provisions in there, hoping that we're able to stop any sort of political interference and give it true independence. So probably it begs the question, or we need to take a step back and say, well, did we really cover all the angles to give this sort of protection? Today we have one man who has resigned and who has come out clearly, even if it's not very clear, you can infer what the issues are. We may have other prosecutors in the future who may leave for very similar reasons, may not even know what the real issues are in there. So it makes us take a step back and evaluate again the office and see what should we really have done, what can we really do to improve upon such a critical office as this one.
All right, thank you very much, Brighto. Brighto is with the Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition, and he was giving us his thoughts on the resignation of the Special Prosecutor Martin Amidu. I'm coming back to you, Kojo. So, as I indicated earlier, there have been a number of things that have happened before we got to this point. Now, a number of things have also been made clear in the letter that Martin Amidu wrote to the president. Now, let's walk through some of the things that have occurred. First, we had the Special Prosecutor pronounce or put out a report or his view or the corruption risk assessment on the Japa royalties deal. Now, after that, then he also added a bit more, which had to do with the Airbus and a few others. And then there was the backlash. So take us through from then on.
Well, this letter to the president, the resignation letter, now puts things in perspective by way of timeline. It would appear that he first presented his report to the president with an intention of carrying out further actions, as in investigations of the individuals he had identified as quote-unquote suspects in his analysis. What he tells us in this letter is that following the submission of that letter to the president, it became apparent that there was a desire of the presidency to ask him to stay his hand, to hold on, while the issue is, in his words, handled.
Yeah.
This
and while he was being told to stay his hand, the public was also picking up all of this and saying that you should go a lot further. You shouldn't just end there.
That is because when he was asked to stay his hand, he reacted by releasing the statement. That's when the public got to know of the existence of the statement. He did that because the presidency was asking him to hold on, and he did not desire to do so.
Right.
So he says in his letter that unbeknown to the president, he issued the statement, which is why the president's statement, or the statement from the presidency, which came out around the same time, seemed to not really take much account of what was in Martin Amidu's report, because the president's statement was issued without the knowledge that the public was about to see the full report. So following that, then of course the back and forth began. There was of course the explanation and justifications coming from the presidency and the government. Then there were the accusations coming from the opposition, and then civil society got involved in all this. And all through this, people were asking, well, Martin Amidu, why not prosecute? After all, you are the special prosecutor. Yes. But what we now realize is that he had been asked by the president, according to him and his resignation letter, not to do anything. So now we realize that after a week, 2 weeks of being asked to not take action, he realized, or he concluded, that his position is untenable because he no longer sees himself as independent if he can be asked by a president to not take action. And at that point, he issues his resignation.
You know what?